All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. I was asked today what happens when technical analysis fails, and I said I'd jump on video and do that, and there's no better time to do that than right now. And whether we're looking at technical analysis in the market, charting, or we're looking at seasonality, or we're looking at fundamentals, or we're looking at market dynamics, whatever tool we're using, right? No tool is foolproof. In fact, they all have times where they work great and times where they just frankly don't. And many tools, especially technical analysis, always has counterpoints, right? There's something bullish you can look at, something bearish you can look at on the exact same chart. And, that is the norm in the market. And so people use tools to try to, position and try to predict or to forecast, with some degree of odds in their favor, right? And those that are trying to use the tools to try to predict every single move in the market, they're quickly frustrated and move on, right? But one of the things that's happening right now in the market is, and we've talked about it kind of ongoing, is this volume element that comes in, right? And you'll notice I'm not just seeing high volume and going, oh, let me go buy, right? High volume, oh, let me go buy. Right? That's not what I'm comfortable in doing for two pieces. One is because number one, I don't have confirmation that volume's going to close, and number two, that volume's going to hold, and number two, even if it does, the option value is insane. It's just insane, right? So generally, what happens when you start to see technicals falter and technicals fail? Things are happening for much, much bigger reasons, and technicals kind of go out the window a little bit. There's a couple times where technicals during my trading career have just absolutely gone out the window, where they just don't matter. They need a pure reset. We see it happen from time to time with an event here and there, but when we go and we look at bigger markets where things just kind of all the short-term type of tendencies just broke on down, right? The long-term tendencies didn't, right? But the short-term tendencies, they all just cracked, broke, collapsed. One here where it happened was back in 2010, and this is the flash crash, right? This move right here, this day right here, and yes, the market came all the way down here, right? This is not any kind of data error, right? Market came all the way down here in the flash crash, and literally, the market was just moving at a velocity and a pace that, was unheard of, right? It wasn't like you could look at overbought or oversold or look at the volume or look at this tool or that tool and say, hey, that's going to happen, right? That wasn't the case. That wasn't, that wasn't the element there. There wasn't anything with that to really kind of sink teeth into, right? Another time where that happened was here in 2015. And I remember this one vividly because I was caught on the wrong side. I was playing for some of the normality and, got some of the heavy abnormality or the breakdown of technicals, which is always a risk for a technical trader. And that is right here, right? And some of the short-term tendencies kind of went out the window, and bye-bye, right? The overall, there's always going to be technicals that hold up, and in hindsight, we can go back and look and say, this was broken right here, and then, we broke these lows right here, so of course we're going down, right? But it doesn't always work like that in real time, right? Right here, we broke below these lows. We didn't see the market collapse, right? So it's, it's one of those where we start getting into oversold conditions. We start seeing something happen that is just highly unusual. And in this case right here, this was China stepping in and doing some major asset sales and, really kind of roiled the markets heavily and it had everybody just kind of scratching their head, what's going on? We didn't find out for a while after what really went on, and then when more information came out about what went on, that's when the market decided to to really recover here. And so right now, right, we see some of these volume tendencies, we see some of the basing kind of potentially going on here. But, we are in a position where, this is highly different in the market. This is not, your normal technicals coming into play. And so it's one where you need the confirmation that something different is happening. For now, there's not enough in this bottom for me to look and go, or in this volume for me to look and say, you know what, I can go out and buy calls right now, and I'm pretty comfortable. I'm going to make my money on them. That's just not a position or not something that I can say with any degree of certainty or probability. And I continue to look at the VXX here today. I continue to just watch it. I have not had any kind of signal to go trade it. And I'm looking for a chance to get into the puts. And, and then I come and I start looking at the option values and I go, okay, if I get a signal, which option would I buy? And the reality is, not many of them. They're just incredibly overvalued. I could buy 2 weeks out and buy the 41s. I got to pay 80 cents. They were about $1.20 earlier today, so they are moving a little bit. But I've got to pay. I got to pay pretty good money here, and even if it goes my way, it's got to go my way in a huge way. For me to make money. And when we see S&P futures breaking outside of even their average true range in this market, that wow element, that free fall kind of wow situation is still on the table. And that's what we're seeing happen. That's what we're seeing, with this cascading kind of just, it's been this time of day almost every day where we just see the sellers coming in hard. And there's just not a lot of bids to really, really prop it up in any kind of, major way to kind of give the bulls some confidence or give fund managers some confidence to step on in. Oversold is not mattering in this market, right? Transports have been oversold for how long? Doesn't matter, right? It's oversold is not a reason that investors are stepping in and buying. It's not like investors are even taking positive news or even analyst defense as anything. We have several analysts coming out and defending Twitter today, and Twitter's barely even bouncing on the analyst comments. We have Citron Research who is known for making calls and especially on the short side of stocks. And when they come out and they say, hey, short this stock, it generally moves the stock a little bit, but in the short run. But if you look at the overall track record, I mean, there's a lot of hit or miss in those calls. But in this type of environment, go short that. Okay, everybody in the pool. And we've had Morgan Stanley, we've had J.P. Morgan both come out and defend Twitter here today. In fact, Morgan Stanley went as far as to say it's still one of their top picks for 2019, and the stock isn't able to bounce on it. And that's the environment we are in right now, and it is pretty pretty bearish, pretty grisly. But it's also extremely oversold. And, we are going to have one of those days where the bears get caught with their pants down. But, that could still be that could still be another 100 points down. And so when technicals fail, when you're not seeing the technicals hold, when you're not seeing the tendencies hold, generally that tells you, okay, something different's happening. The odds aren't in your favor. You have to wait. You have to say, hey, you know what? I'm either going to go and play the angst, right? The nervousness, or the in this case, let me just go buy some puts, right? Let's just go buy some puts. Fine. Great. Let's just go buy some puts. Are you going to go to bed comfortable tonight with just buying puts? Right? You can do the same thing with, hey, let's just go buy calls, right? the puts don't have a great risk reward. The calls don't have a great risk reward. One of them is going to make money in most cases, but do you have a tool that's going to indicate better than others which way that stock's going to go? And when you start seeing some of the tools falter a little bit, you kind of just back on off and you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to wait until I start seeing them work, and once they start to work again, that's when you can come in and trust them just a little bit more. But for me, as I look at things, it still looks like we have this kind of basing process going on. We still have not eclipsed this 35K volume, even with the bottom volume for today. And this 30K volume is probably a no-brainer that bottom is in for today. We're probably not closing below the lows of the day. We may make new lows here on the day, but to close below them, the odds are very, very slim that would happen given what we've seen in the volume. So, we now have these three volume elements where, none of them eclipse the volume that we saw yesterday. And, what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that, the tendency is that this is some basic. But if you're going to step in and buy aggressively, you need some confirmation on that. And, right now, with how the market has moved, my confirmation level is really far away, isn't it? It's 70 points away. It's almost 3% away. That's a huge confirmation level. And if the market were to go and get there tomorrow, right? Let's just say it gets there tomorrow, which it could. Am I going to feel comfortable buying if this level breaks? No, because it's going to be short-term very overbought if it gets there, right? So I need a different level. I need something different to kind of come into play here for me to want to step in and be a buyer. What exactly that is, I don't have just yet. There's a myriad. There's infinite number of things that could happen, and me, some of the tendencies that I like to see, but last hour get erased type of stuff. But where things sit, I'm not going to jump into anything. I'm gonna stay with the cash that I have, and go from there here into the rest of the day, barring something newsworthy, right? News catalyst worthy here into the close. I look at things like a Microsoft and it's breaking the 200-day moving average here today. And, Microsoft has done a really good job of holding that 200-day moving average. So we're seeing that type of erosion here. Adobe has been one of the top performers overall, but even it is starting to break on down, and that's not uncommon to see when we have these bear market routes, coming into play. I've priced out some FXI, call spreads, and thought, maybe a little bit of that, but even they're not priced out. The pricing on them is pretty darn ridiculous. Even some of the biggest safe havens out there, the big dividend safe havens like AT&T, getting absolutely shellacked here today, and that tells you what, the fear element is extremely high, and fund managers are being forced to sell. They're just being forced to free up cash. They're being forced out of this market, not because they don't like the fundamentals or the technicals or the metrics or any of that, right? They start taking on losses, and they have to change exposure levels, and we are absolutely seeing that come into play, here this week, and even more here today. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.